I stared at the government building and checked my watch again. 9 o'clock. Our appointment was in 5 minutes. I held a small bouquet of white roses in one hand and the folder with our documents in the other. The engagement ring rested safely inside my jacket pocket. I smiled to myself. Today is finally the day, I whispered. For months, I had imagined this moment. Emily Parker would walk through those glass doors, smile at me, tease me for arriving too early, and then we would sign the papers together. Our new life would begin. My phone buzzed. Emily's name appeared on the screen. I answered immediately. "Emily, where are you?" She sighed. "I'm so sorry." I forced myself to smile. "You're close, right?" "No." Nathan suddenly asked me to stay at the office. I closed my eyes. "Today?" "I know. Please don't be angry." "Emily, my boss really needs me. It's our marriage registration." "I know. You promised." "I did." "Then why are you still at work?" "I can't disappoint Nathan." Her words hit me harder than I expected. "What about disappointing me?" Silence. Finally, she whispered, "Can we reschedule?" I looked at the flowers. I looked at the entrance. Couples kept walking inside together. Some laughed. Some held hands. I stood alone. "I guess we can," I answered quietly. "Thank you. You're the sweetest." The call ended. I stayed there another 10 minutes before walking away. I told myself love required patience. I told myself successful people had demanding jobs. I told myself next time will be different. 2 weeks later, I believed my own lies again. This time I arrived even earlier. The same building, the same flowers, the same ring, the same hope. 9 o'clock passed, then 9:15, then 9:30. I called Emily. No answer. I called again. Nothing. Again. Voicemail. I sent a message. "Are you okay?" No reply. Another message. "I'm waiting." Nothing. People kept entering the building. Employees glanced at me with sympathetic smiles. One older woman walked past and asked gently, "Did someone cancel?" I forced a laugh. "She's running late." The woman nodded kindly. "I hope she arrives." "So do I." An hour passed. Then another. Eventually the office closed for lunch. I sat outside with the flowers beside me. My phone remained silent. Late that evening, it finally rang. "Emily." I answered immediately. "Where were you?" "Oh." She sounded tired. "My phone died." "Your phone died for 10 hours?" "I've been busy. I waited outside the office all day." "I'm sorry." "You forgot." "I didn't forget." "Then what happened?" "Nathan needed everyone for an important celebration." I frowned. "Celebration?" "His promotion." "You chose a party over marrying me?" "It wasn't like that." "It sounded exactly like that." "You don't understand." "No, Emily." My voice shook. "I finally do." She stayed silent. "I'll call you tomorrow," she whispered. The call ended before I could answer. I couldn't breathe. I started walking without knowing where I was going. Half an hour later, I stopped outside one of the city's most expensive restaurants. Bright lights filled the windows. Music drifted onto the street. I looked inside by accident. Then everything froze. Emily stood near the center of the room. She wore the blue dress I had bought her for our registration day. Nathan Reed stood beside her. He raised a glass. Everyone cheered. Emily laughed. Not a forced laugh. Not an exhausted laugh. A happy laugh. She looked happier celebrating his promotion than she had ever looked planning our future. Nathan wrapped an arm around her shoulders. She didn't move away. Instead, she smiled even wider. I remained outside the window. Invisible. I remembered sitting alone with flowers while she toasted another man's success. The roses slipped from my hand. They landed on the sidewalk. No one noticed. I whispered to myself, I was never first. My chest hurt. Not because she missed another appointment. Because I suddenly realized this had always been our relationship. Nathan needed her. She ran. Her co-workers invited her. She went. I needed her once. She apologized. The difference had always been obvious. I just refused to see it. My phone buzzed again. It was my younger sister, Mia Carter. "Hey," she said softly. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. You never lie well." I laughed bitterly. She missed it again. Mia stayed quiet for a second. "Where are you?" "Outside a restaurant." "Alone?" "Yeah. Come home." "I don't want to." "Please." An hour later, I sat in Mia's apartment. She handed me a cup of coffee. You look terrible, she said. I feel worse. She leaned forward. Can I ask you something? Sure. If I told you this story happened to me instead of you, what would you say? I looked down. I'd tell you to leave. So why won't you? Because I love her. Mia shook her head. No. What? You love the future you imagined. Her words hurt because they were true. You deserve someone who chooses you first. I kept believing she'd change. Has she? I couldn't answer. A knock interrupted us. Logan Brooks walked inside carrying takeout. He looked at me and sighed. I heard. Mia called you? Yeah. He sat across from me. I'm sorry. You knew this would happen, didn't you? He hesitated. I warned you years ago. I remember. You stopped talking to me for 2 months. I thought you hated Emily. I never hated her. He looked directly into my eyes. I hated watching you become someone's backup plan. I rubbed my face. Why didn't you keep pushing? Because you loved her. And you wouldn't have listened. He was right. I never had. The room stayed silent. Finally, I reached into my pocket. I pulled out the ring. It sparkled under the kitchen light. I stared at it for several seconds. Then I closed the box. I'm done, I whispered. Mia squeezed my hand. Logan nodded slowly. I took one long breath. Tomorrow, I would disappear from Emily's life. This time, there would be no explanation, no argument, no second chance, only silence. The morning after I decided to leave, I woke up feeling empty. For a few minutes, I almost reached for my phone. I almost called Emily. Instead, I turned it off. No more, I whispered. Those 2 words became my promise. Packing my apartment felt strange. Every shirt reminded me of a canceled date. Every picture reminded me of another excuse. I picked up the engagement ring one last time. I hope you become my wife, I said quietly. Now you're just a lesson. I placed the ring inside a small box. Along with it, I left one note. I finally chose myself. That was all. No blame. No anger. No goodbye. I locked the apartment door and handed the keys to the landlord. Moving, he asked. Yes. Far away. Far enough. He smiled kindly. I hope you find what you're looking for. I think I'm finally starting. While waiting for my flight, I opened an old email. Months earlier, a recruiter named Olivia Bennett had contacted me. At the time, I ignored her message because Emily wanted me to stay close to home. Now I read it again. We've been impressed by your engineering projects. We'd like to offer you an overseas position if you're still interested. I smiled for the first time in weeks. I replied immediately. I'm interested. The answer arrived before my plane landed. We've been hoping you'd say yes. A week later, I stepped into a new country with 2 suitcases and a nervous smile. Everything looked unfamiliar. The streets, the language, even the weather. I stood outside the company building and laughed quietly. I guess we're starting over. Inside, a tall man with gray hair walked toward me. You must be our new engineer. I am. He extended his hand. I'm Daniel Foster. It's nice to meet you. He studied my face for a moment. You look like someone carrying too much. I laughed awkwardly. Is it that obvious? It usually is. He pointed toward his office. Coffee first. Work later. A few minutes later, he handed me a mug. So, he asked, what brought you here? A fresh start. Career. Life. He nodded without asking for details. Sometimes those are the same thing. For the next hour, he introduced me to the team. Everyone welcomed me warmly. No one cared where I came from. No one asked about Emily. It felt surprisingly peaceful. At lunch, Daniel sat across from me. You work hard, he said. I always have. But I spent years trying to prove my worth to someone. He stirred his coffee. Did it work? No, it never does. I looked at him. What do you mean? You can't convince people to value you. He smiled gently. They either do or they don't. His words stayed with me. Before returning to work, he added one more sentence. Success begins when you stop chasing people who don't value you. I repeated it silently all afternoon. A few days later, someone knocked on my office door. Excuse me. I looked up. A cheerful woman smiled at me. I'm Sophia Collins. The project designer? That's me. She placed several drawings on my desk. I think your calculations are brilliant. I blinked. Really? Absolutely. No one's ever called my work brilliant. She laughed. Then people haven't been paying attention. I couldn't help smiling. She pointed at one sketch. I have one idea. I'm listening. What if we combine your system with this layout? I studied her design. That actually solves the biggest problem. I hope you'd say that. We spent the next 2 hours discussing ideas. There was no competition, no pretending, just honest teamwork. When we finished, she stood up. You know, she said, you're easier to work with than everyone warned me. I laughed. They warned you. They said you're quiet. I am. But you're also kind. Nobody had described me that way in a long time. Thank you. She shrugged. I'm only telling the truth. Walking home, that evening felt different. For once, I wasn't wondering whether someone cared about me. People simply showed it. Weeks turned into months. My project succeeded. Daniel trusted me with larger responsibilities. Sophia became one of my closest friends. Every morning, I woke up excited instead of anxious. One evening my phone rang. Logan. Hey, you sound happier. I think I am. I'm glad. How's home? He sighed. Interesting. What happened? Emily finally went to your apartment. I stayed quiet. The landlord told her you'd moved. And she found a ring. I closed my eyes. I left it there. She cried. I didn't answer. She kept asking where you went. What did everyone tell her? The truth. Which is, nobody knows. I smiled slightly. I guess they don't. Logan continued. She called me every day. What did you say? I told her you deserve peace. What did she react? She begged me to help. I looked out the window. I'm not angry anymore. I know. I just don't want to go back. You shouldn't. A few weeks later, Logan called again. I heard something else. What? Nathan isn't who Emily thought he was. I frowned. What happened? He got his promotion. And he barely spends time with her now. I remained silent. Most evenings he's out with clients. Emily trusted him. I know. She chose him over us. I know. Logan lowered his voice. People at her office are talking. About what? They've noticed Nathan getting close to another employee. I remembered standing outside the restaurant window. The laughter, the celebration, the excuses. Now the same pattern was repeating. Does Emily know? Not yet. She will. I think so. Another month passed. Daniel invited me into his office. You've exceeded every expectation. Thank you. I'd like you to lead our next international project. I stared at him. Me? You earned it. I don't know what to say. He smiled proudly. Say yes. I laughed. Yes. He stood and shook my hand. I knew you'd rebuild your life. I wasn't sure. You are now. That evening, Sophia found me smiling at my desk. Good news. I got promoted. She clapped happily. I knew you would. You believed in me before I believed in myself. She smiled. That's what real teammates do. As I walked home beneath the evening lights, I realized something had quietly changed inside me. I no longer wondered whether Emily would call. I no longer imagined impossible conversations. The man who once waited outside a government office had disappeared. In his place stood someone stronger. Walking away had broken my heart, but rebuilding myself had become the greatest victory of my life. Months passed faster than I expected. One morning, I caught my reflection in the office window and smiled. I looked different, not because of better clothes or a higher salary. I stood straighter. I slept peacefully. I no longer apologized for existing. Daniel noticed me smiling. Good morning. Morning. You finally believe in yourself. I think I do. He nodded proudly. I've been waiting to hear that. I laughed. It took me long enough. It usually does. The day continued normally until the receptionist called me. Someone is here asking for you. Who? She says her name is Emily Parker. My smile disappeared. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Are you there? The receptionist asked. Yes. Should I send her away? I closed my eyes. No. A minute later, I walked into the lobby. Emily stood near the entrance. She looked nothing like the woman I remembered. Her eyes were swollen. Her shoulders drooped. She clutched a worn handbag with trembling hands. When she saw me, tears immediately filled her eyes. There you are. I remained still. Hi, Emily. She stepped closer. I finally found you. Ow! It took months. You didn't answer my question. She lowered her head. I asked people. Who? Anyone who might know. And they told you? Eventually. I sighed. You shouldn't have come. I had to. No. I looked directly into her eyes. You wanted to. She nodded slowly. I deserve that. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Finally, she whispered, "You look happy." "I am. I've never seen you like this." "That's because I stopped waiting." She wiped away another tear. "I came to apologize. I figured. I'm sorry." "I know." "No." She shook her head desperately. "You don't understand." "Then explain." She took a deep breath. "Nathan manipulated me." I stayed silent. "He kept telling me every promotion would secure our future." "Our future?" She nodded. "I believed him. You chose him. I thought I was helping us." I couldn't stop myself from laughing. It wasn't a happy laugh. It didn't feel that way. "I know. You left me sitting outside a government office." She looked at the floor. "I know. You celebrated another man's promotion." "I know. You ignore my calls." "I know." Each answer came softer than the last. Then she whispered, "I hate myself for it." I crossed my arms. "What do you want from me?" "I want another chance." I stared at her. "You disappeared." "I had to. I searched everywhere." "I know. I found the ring. I left it for you." She cried harder. I didn't understand. "You do now." She nodded. "I do." Then she said the words that hurt more than everything else. "I always planned to marry you eventually." I felt something break inside me again. Eventually, she reached toward me. "I didn't mean it like that." "But you said it." "I just wanted to establish my career first. And I was supposed to wait." "I thought you would." I smiled sadly. "That's exactly the problem." She looked confused. "You never saw me as your first choice." "I did." "No." I shook my head. "You saw me as a safe choice." Her lips trembled. "I loved you. I don't doubt that. I really did. But not enough." She tried to speak again. I interrupted her. "You always expected me to understand." "I know. You expected me to wait." "I know. You expected me to forgive you." Silence. "I always did." She covered her face. "I'm sorry." Before I could answer, another voice interrupted us. "Is everything all right here?" A confident woman walked across the lobby. She carried a folder under one arm. She looked at me first, then at Emily. "I'm Victoria Hayes." She extended a hand toward Emily. "I'm this company's legal advisor." Emily didn't move. Victoria looked back at me. "Do you know her?" "I do. Is she welcome here?" I hesitated. Emily noticed. Pain flashed across her face. "I'll leave if he wants." Victoria folded her arms. "He doesn't have to handle this alone." Emily whispered, "I only wanted to talk." Victoria answered calmly, "You've talked." Emily looked at me one final time. "Please." I remained silent. She slowly turned and walked toward the exit. Just before leaving, she whispered, "I still love you." The doors closed behind her. Victoria waited a moment before speaking. "You handled that well." "I'm not sure." "You didn't lose your temper." "I almost lost myself." She nodded. "Sometimes that's the harder battle." That evening, my phone rang. It was Logan. "I heard Emily found you." News travels fast. It does. There's something else. "What?" "You deserve the full truth." I leaned back in my chair. "I'm listening." "Nathan never loved Emily." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "He dated her because of her family's business connections." I felt sick. "Are you certain?" "Absolutely." "How do you know?" "One of his former co-workers told me everything." I stayed quiet. Logan continued. "When Nathan lost his position, he disappeared. He left her immediately. And the promises? They disappeared too." I rubbed my forehead. "So she lost everything." "Almost." "What do you mean?" "She still hopes you'll take her back." After ending the call, I sat alone in my apartment. Hours later, someone knocked on my door. I already knew who it was. When I opened it, Emily stood there again. "I know I shouldn't be here." "You're right. I just need 1 minute." I didn't answer. She looked directly into my eyes. "Please give me one final opportunity." I remembered our first date. Her laughter. Our dreams. The ring I once carried with pride. Then I remembered waiting alone. The empty government office. The restaurant window. The endless excuses. 2 lives fought inside my heart. One belonged to the man who still loved the memories. The other belonged to the man who had finally learned to love himself. Emily waited quietly. I closed my eyes. The hardest battle was no longer against the woman standing before me. It was against the part of me that still wanted to believe love alone could erase years of being someone's second choice. I agreed to meet Emily one last time. Not because I wanted her back, Not because I believed our story could be rewritten. I agreed because I no longer wanted unanswered questions following me through life. She suggested a quiet cafe near the river. When I arrived, she was already there. She stood as soon as she saw me. "Thank you for coming." I nodded. "This is the last time." "I understand." We sat across from each other. For a few moments, neither of us spoke. The silence felt strangely peaceful. Months ago, I would have rushed to comfort her. Now I simply waited. Emily finally broke the silence. "I've replayed everything 1,000 times. I believe you. I wish I could change it." "So do I." She looked surprised. "You do?" "I wish none of it had happened." A tear rolled down her cheek. "I ruined us." I folded my hands together. "You did." She took a shaky breath. "I need to tell you the truth." "I'm listening." "When I missed our first marriage registration." She looked down. "I honestly believed we'd just schedule another one." "I know." "When I missed the second one." She couldn't finish the sentence. I waited. She forced herself to continue. "I thought you'd forgive me again." "I always had. That's why I wasn't afraid." Her words didn't make me angry anymore. They only made me sad. "I believed," she whispered, "that you loved me too much to leave." I nodded slowly. "You were right." She looked confused. "I did love you that much." "Then why?" "Because loving you was destroying me." She covered her mouth. "I never wanted that. But that's what happened." "I know." For the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to defend myself. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask why. I already knew. I spent years trying to become enough for you. You were enough. "No." I shook my head gently. "If I had been enough, I wouldn't have been your last priority." She cried quietly. "I was selfish." "You were. I kept believing you'd understand." "I always did." "And that became the problem." She nodded. "I see that now." I leaned back in my chair. "Emily." "Yes." "I want to thank you." She stared at me in disbelief. "Thank me?" "Yes." "What for?" "You taught me something I should have learned years ago." She whispered. "What was it?" "Love without respect eventually becomes self-destruction." She closed her eyes. "I never respected your time." "No." "I never respected your feelings." "No." I thought apologizing fixed everything. It only delayed the consequences. She cried harder. "I hate the person I used to be." "I don't." She looked up. "You don't." "I've stopped hating anyone." "What do you feel?" I thought carefully before answering. "Gratitude." She looked confused again. If none of this had happened, I'd still be waiting outside that government office. She smiled sadly. "You've changed." I had to. She reached in her bag and removed a small envelope. "I brought something." "What is it?" "The note you left with the ring." She placed it on the table. "I've carried it every day." I looked at the familiar handwriting. I finally chose myself. Emily traced the edge of the paper. I didn't understand those words then. And now? Now I do. She looked directly at me. "I lost you forever." I remained silent. She continued. "It wasn't Nathan." "No." "It wasn't another woman." "No." "It was me." "Yes." She nodded slowly. "My own choices pushed you away." Neither of us spoke again for a long time. Finally, she stood. "I won't bother you anymore." "Thank you." She smiled through her tears. "I hope you're happy." "I am. I really mean that." "I know." She hesitated. "I'll always regret what I did." "I believe you." She took one final look at me. "Goodbye." "Goodbye, Emily." She walked away without turning around. I watched until she disappeared into the crowd. Then I quietly paid for my coffee and left through the opposite direction. A few weeks later, someone surprised me in my apartment. The doorbell rang. When I opened it, Mia threw her arms around me. "I missed you." I laughed. "I missed you too." She stepped inside and looked around. "This place feels like you." "I'll take that as a compliment." "It is." We spent the afternoon talking. She asked about work. She asked about Daniel. She laughed when I told her stories about Sophia accidentally covering the conference room with design sketches. "You smile every time you mention your coworkers," Mia teased. "They're good people." "I can tell." She became quiet for a moment. Then she smiled warmly. "You know what makes me happiest?" "What?" "I finally see my big brother smiling again." I looked away, embarrassed. "Do I smile that much?" "You didn't before." Her words stayed with me. The following Monday, Sophia found me standing on the office balcony after work. "Beautiful sunset." "It is." She stood beside me. You seem lighter. I finally closed an old chapter. I'm glad. She didn't ask for details. She never forced conversations. She simply respected my silence. After a while, she smiled. Want to grab dinner? Sure. As we walked toward the elevator, I realized something important. This story had never been about replacing Emily. It wasn't about finding another relationship. It wasn't about proving my worth to anyone. It was about becoming someone I could respect. Everything else came afterward. That night, I walked home beneath a sky full of stars. The city lights reflected across the river beside me. I thought about the man who had once waited with flowers, documents, and a ring. I wish I could tell him one thing. You'll survive. Maybe he wouldn't believe me. Maybe he would keep waiting anyway. Some lessons could only be learned through pain. I smiled as I continued walking. I didn't look back. I didn't need to, because I finally understood that sometimes the greatest revenge isn't making someone regret losing you. It's quietly refusing to return to the person who believed you would never have the courage to leave. And for the first time in my life, I truly felt free.